Well, welcome to the Talking Church podcast, Zeus and Morgan. Super excited to have you today. It's going to be a great episode. We are talking about your campus. Zeus, you are the campus pastor at our Shakopee campus. It's our second largest campus. Shakopee is a suburb of the Twin Cities, and Morgan, you're the associate campus pastor. And so today we're going to talk about kind of your relationship and talk about what things you oversee, Zeus. Morgan, you're stepping into this role, staffing, staff meeting, whatever it is. But there's a lot of pastors out there that probably have an associate pastor, an executive pastor. We at River Valley break that down at most of our larger campuses, have an associate campus pastor that's full-time. For others, they're part-time, they're working other jobs, but the roles itself are similar. And so welcome. If you want to just share a little bit about yourself for those listening, and then we'll just dive in and talk church for a little bit.
Yeah, cool. I'll go first. Are we good? All right. No, hey, thank you, Logan, for letting us be a part of this. We're excited to be here and to contribute. So just a little bit about myself. This is my 7th year of ministry, and honestly, it's been amazing. Like, I know not a lot of people can have that, but there is something really special about this church and this ministry. And so even for me to be here in this role, in this position, and just being able to share some of my experience is something that I'm looking forward to.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then I'm Morgan. I've been in ministry for like almost 6 years now. Not all at River Valley, unfortunately. No, I'm just kidding. I got good experience at the church I was at before, but I was actually a kids pastor before I stepped into this role. So been in this role since September, but just love getting to be a part of the church. Grew up in church as a pastor's kid and just knew at a young age felt like the Lord wanted me to do this long term. And so I'm here and I'm thankful to be here and excited to be doing this too.
Yeah, and Morgan and I went to high school together.
Yes.
Go Panthers.
Fun fact.
Fun fact. Zeus, where'd you were in Wisconsin or?
Yeah. So for me, I actually tell people I'm more of a Midwest boy. Okay. So when people ask me, where are you from? I'm from Midwest. And so born in Mexico, lived in southwestern Kansas for my childhood. Okay. Country living. And then from there is where I moved to the inner city of Milwaukee. So 2 different worlds. And most people know me from Wisconsin because of my sports affiliations. And
a different episode.
Yeah, that's a different episode. No, but that was my teenage years, and it was at the end of that time that I came to know Jesus, and then that led me up here to Minnesota, where have been for my adult years. And so I went country living, inner city living, and now into suburban life living. And so I'm from the Midwest.
Very cool. And you were at our Minnetrista campus before. You were campus pastor there. 5 years, And then when we had a transition at the Shakopee campus, how long have you been at the Shakopee campus as a campus pastor?
About 2.5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So one of the things that's kind of crazy. So fun fact, since you guys, for me, I literally went from being an over-involved volunteer, is what I tell people, to a campus pastor. So my entire 7 years have been campus pastor, most of it at Minnetrista and now at our Shakopee
Yeah, that's
campus.
very rare. Our staff development plan has grown since then. But Zeus, you are one of the few that did jump from that volunteer right into that role.
Yeah.
But
it was crazy. But
how many people like on a weekend attended Minnetrista when you took it over versus when you transitioned it?
Yeah, so when I took it over,
and if Brian's listening, we love you, Brian.
I love you, Brian Engel.
Brian is an amazing church planner. They're actually planting another church, so we're excited.
They are.
We're going to be church grandparents. But
I love it.
There you
No, Brian Engel, really healthy when he transitioned off the team and went back to Milwaukee, actually.
Yeah.
He left just a really exciting community out there, and that wasn't always the case for our Minnetrista location.
It was like 12 people before that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember the old building days. Mean, what we were able to do is still remarkable to think about. But yes, when I took it over, it was about maybe 400 people on average, and I had a great opportunity to try to help just continue the momentum. And first year it went down, and I'm like, man, I'm going to lose my job. And then for some reason I hit the year mark, and everything just took off from there. So when I left, about almost 5 years, we were able to be somewhere around 700, running multiple services, more than 2, and it was great to be a part of.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Morgan, in your role now, you went from kids pastor to associate campus pastor. What have been some of the biggest jumps you've seen, obviously getting into Shakopee campus, and right now on the weekend, Shakopee, what is it running? Just to give people an idea.
Yeah, just for an idea, about 1,200.
Yeah.
It's 1,200. It was more when I took it over, but something happened in 2020.
Yeah, what was that? What?
Let's not talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's move on. But most people know. But anyhow,
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Transition. Yes. It was obviously a big transition. Went from being in Go Kids on the weekends, I'm back in our kids wing, to on the weekends now I'm sitting in services all morning long, which is a great thing. But I would say probably the biggest difference was when I was over a specific ministry. I'm a very goal oriented person. And so it felt easier to like have goals, and it felt like you were like, okay, yeah, I hit that goal, I hit that milestone marker. And then shifting into this role, now overseeing staff instead of being the one who are the staff who are in charge of the ministries, instead of being the one who's in charge, shifting that mindset of like, okay, they're not my goals to achieve anymore, but now I have to help these people achieve their goals. And when they win, I win. That's how that works.
Sure.
And when they lose, I lose. Like my mindset has shifted to just my goal setting for myself, but more helping a group of people win for the greater group of people that we get to lead and steward. So yeah, that's probably been like the biggest like shift in just thinking and processing ministry.
Yeah, no, that's a big step in leadership for sure, to say versus my win versus everyone else's win.
Yeah.
And whenever you step up in leadership, those who lead teams, whether it's going from a volunteer to a team leader or a team leader to a person on staff, that is a big shift. When you guys think about your like breakdown of responsibilities, every one of our campuses, I want to kind of bring that caveat to everyone. We have 9 campuses, probably launching very soon, where each campus staff looks different. Some campuses don't have an associate campus pastor that's full time. They're tied to like it's youth and associate or connections and associate. Everyone has a different model, but some of our larger campuses do have that associate campus pastor model. In terms of how you guys break it down from responsibility, some people it's like I oversee these people, you oversee them, or there's a chief of staff model. What do you guys do that seemed to work for you over these past? I know it's been about 5 months or so, but what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah. Let me just say this really quick too, by the way. Morgan is crushing here. So she is doing an amazing job. And so we the way we have decided to divide up sort of the responsibilities at our campus has been by just kind of understanding, well, what are some of her areas of some of the skill sets that she has that can be very complementary to the rest of our team. And so knowing that she came from a next generation background and did an amazing job, was very well accomplished in that role. When we transitioned to working together, I had to ask myself, like, well, I want to put her in a place where she's going to win and where she can be a massive support to the rest of our team. And so when she took it over, the 2 roles that ended up shifting under her umbrella were kids, youth, and then some of the roles, and some of the other responsibilities that were there prior were operations. So anything from facility management to campus administration has been what she's been responsible for. And for me specifically, I do more the discipleship connections and worship, production, that side of things. And so some people would say like the visible things that happen on a Sunday morning. But all in all, I'm still, how do I say it? I'm still oversight.
Yeah, for sure. But, over everyone, but yeah.
Yeah, but she, in terms of the people we have listed, she is responsible and has probably, you meet with them just about every week, just touching base.
Yeah. I think sometimes when people see River Valley, they're like, oh yeah, River Valley, you guys, it's like right now, I think we're running a little under 8,000 but it changes all the time. It's like spring break happens and you're like, oh man. And then Easter comes and it's like, okay, we're 25,000, whatever it is. And so you're like, okay, what was last week? And so those numbers, I think people have shifted the way they communicate their numbers. Cause it's like saying pre-COVID now is like, bro, that was 2 years ago. You can't really get away with that. Yeah. Like, oh man, our pre-COVID. But from a team perspective, like, what I always love to tell people is we are that large as a whole, but when you break it down location by location, it's like a campus of 1,300, a campus of 400, a campus of 2,000. It's like they're churches that are campuses. Yeah. But from a staff perspective, how many staff do you guys have, full-time, part-time? I just think that can be helpful for people because when I'm talking, traveling around to different conferences and events, it's, we have, upwards of 150, 160 staff. And it's like, oh my gosh. But when you think about it from a location by location standpoint, it's a little bit more easy to digest to say, oh, we can learn from that, or we
Right.
could do that too.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we just added a team member, but are we
Yes,
about?
I think we have 13.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
that'd be
Seems
about right.
Yeah.
And how many are full-time versus part-time?
Yep. So in kids, we have one full-time and a part-time there. And then one of our administrators is part-time.
I would,
think
if I were to guess with
I know I'm putting you on the
ballpark
spot.
range. Yeah, you're putting me on the spot here, man. I should have prepared. No, I think I probably maybe nine of us are full time, and then the other ones are part time.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah, and I think that like the campus pre-COVID, again, those numbers like we said, but it's like, there were weekends where you'd be close to 2,000,
Yeah,
breaking
yeah.
above that. So like that from a staffing perspective, maybe from that number
Yeah.
I don't want to say like, hey, if you're a church 1,200, that means you should have this many staff,
Right.
because then there's central staff that support our model.
Correct.
Doesn't work perfectly for everyone.
Right.
But I do think for a campus, for a location, to see that for people to say, oh, okay, this isn't just this behemoth that has a 10,000 seat auditorium. We have locations that are managing anywhere from, a couple hundred to several thousand. And so I wanted to make sure people knew that. And so when you think about your daily responsibilities, so you have your areas that you oversee, but what are the things that you're doing, like week to week, day to day? What does the schedule look like for you? How do you guys break that down? Frequency of meetings? I don't know, wherever you feel like you want to go with that.
Yeah, Morgan, you can go first on that one.
Okay. It obviously differs somewhat, but I would say just kind of broad spectrum. I tend to heavy load my beginning of the week with staff meetings. That's just how I personally like to do it. So it's like checkpoints, what's coming up during the week, especially being over like our facilities and our administrators and events. We start our Mondays off like that to say like, what's coming up this week that we need to be doing, and we're on top of what's events that are coming up the next month that we have to make sure we're ordering things for, or we're you have to think through all the detailed things. So I like to do it at the beginning of the week, so we're kind of jump starting our week, we're getting ahead of things.
What type of events? Like what does a week of events look like? Maybe if you add a weekend event or something, but what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, like we'll have like marriage nights, or we'll have worship nights, or right now we're in the middle of our what we call core group season, and in our building we use every inch of our building. It's just the way it is. We love it, but that means we're doing ministry Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, every night in our building for this season. So it's like, all right, who's going where? Do we have everything we need? Is everybody covered? Those kind of things.
So who shares the building? What ministries?
So we have Monday nights, we have our core group. So that would be Freedom, which is under our care. And then we have Alpha, which is kind of under Connections. And then Pastor Zeus leads that as well. And then Tuesday nights, we have one of our sisterhood groups, Sisterhood Nights, and then we have our Explore group. And right now we just add like our Financial Peace University. So it's not always, but we just added it in. And then Wednesday mornings, we have Sisterhood mornings. And then Wednesday night, we have youth. And then in this season, we have like our Go Core, which is for kids. So yeah, we're always having people in and out.
Could you guys work, please?
Yeah, no, honestly.
How do you divide who go? Like, are you guys
Yeah.
at everything every night, or how do you
good.
decide who goes to those? Because I know for people, I'm sure a lot of churches
Yeah.
have something similar. It's this group, this thing. It's okay. I'm the pastor. I got to be at every single thing.
Yeah.
How do you decide who's there? Are you always there, or what is that?
No, so I, like you were mentioning, I think every one of us have roles or ministries that we're over. And so we try to be strategic in understanding, especially, again, strategic in how we use the space. Because even though our building is incredible, it's amazing, but we try to really maximize what we can do. But in the same realm, we also have to maximize what we're able to do as a staff, and without expecting our team to be there for every single thing. And so I'm there Monday nights, and Morgan, you're around and you're visible for Tuesday nights, and then Wednesday we have several people who are coming in and out, because we obviously have youth, we have kids, and sometimes we use that night to meet with people. And so whether it's myself, I'm there, or our Connections pastor, care pastor, so we kind of flow in and out.
So typically there's like what do we call it? Like pastor on call almost.
Yeah,
like
just
there
pastoral
every Wednesday,
oversight.
Yeah.
And that's, we still have volunteers who help lead some of those ministries too. So it's like, even though we're not leading them, we still want to make sure they know they feel supported. There's somebody here for them. So
Yeah.
I think that's important to hear, because the larger you get as a church, and I've observed this throughout our years of growth, the more you wish things depended on you, but you realize that it actually doesn't. And if you're going to grow, and growth, obviously we want growth to look like growth in numbers, but growth in depth, growth in discipleship. Like it's not just up and to the right, numbers, butts, and seats, but you don't need to be at everything. And that's why I want them to hear from you guys is like, hey, okay, you're at this, we have a pastoral team here. But we also have families, and we also have other ministry. There's moments where you need to, hey, can you come speak at my small group? Oh, well, sorry, I got to be at church every Wednesday for youth. It's like, well, no, you really don't. We have a youth pastor, and we have a team. And if there's crisis, you're there. If there's things that you need to do, you step in. But I love hearing that there's that kind of breakdown of that. Zeus, for you during the week, I know Morgan, can you finish up on your thought for your week?
No, you're good.
And then
You're
Zeus will
good.
get to your week.
It's probably similar. That's probably it. I just try to do that heavy on the forefront of the week. So then the second half of the week is more availability for just connects with people in our church and our community, stuff like that. Because we want to be relational with the people obviously in our campus too still. And that's how I think it's a good way, like I said, talking about transitions from earlier, not being directly over a team of volunteers. I still want to stay connected to our people. So that's a big way I do that, is just relationally having time with people who attend our campus. So
yeah, I think for me, kind of similar actually. It's very similar. So I don't know who I got this from. It might have been Craig Rochelle, but just the way he structures his week, and I actually kind of really enjoy it. So what I try to do is my Monday and my Tuesday are my in-office days. Now that doesn't mean that there isn't an occasional connect or coffee that I do with someone, because that's the only day that works for them. So again, I'm not hard and fast, but if as much as possible, I try to do my Monday and Tuesday. I'm there and I'm visible. So I'm kind of like Morgan. I'm coming in. I'm kind of checking base. It's the water cooler talk. It's how are you doing? And part of my responsibility is to make sure that our team is healthy. I just want to make sure that they're healthy, that they're enjoying their job. If there's something that I sense is out of balance, I use Monday and Tuesday to try to figure that out. And I do. I'll use those days to have connects and meet with my team members. And even though there's some team members who are not directly under me, that Morgan oversees, every once in a while, I'll go over there and I'll have connects with them and still check in. And hey, did this get done? I'm wondering how we're tracking on this. And then Wednesday and Thursday are like I'm usually in and out of the office because I'm meeting with people and people from our church. And so that's kind of how I divide it up for myself. Totally.
When you think about like those critical moments, whenever you're in leadership, when things are going well, it's amazing. And you're like, I don't even know why people like everyone should be a leader. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then when you have the moments that are tough and they're critical and there's crisis moments, those moments where you say, why does anybody ever want to do this and be in leadership? When you think about those moments, and obviously, Morgan, you've been in this role for a short time, but when you think about some of the little things, even small little things, hey, this person did this or that person did this, how have you guys managed that as a team to think about, okay, I want to make sure that Pastor Zeus is in the loop on this, but I need to solve it now, or when I make this decision that affects Morgan's teams. Have you had any of those moments that have happened and recently that you can think of?
Oh yeah, what did they say?
No problems.
Yeah. What do they say? We're in the people business, right? Yeah. And so, and honestly, people are imperfect, and things are always coming up. There's fires that we are needing to address, whether they're internal within the team or whether they're, there's a miscommunication somewhere within the ministry, and so. Honestly, for us, it's just the thing that we got to do together is we got to get on the same page. If we're not on the same page and if we don't communicate on how we can approach the situation, honestly, it might end up being where I'm trying to do something and then she's trying to do something. And then little do we know, we're actually playing kind of like tug of war and stuff. And so
like solving the same problem, but differently.
Exactly. Yeah. So we prioritize every week on Monday is we get together and we go through everything. So we're like, hey, what's coming up on the calendar? Kind of more of the practical things. And then we're like, okay, are there any things that need to be addressed? Team-wise, volunteer-wise, just anything that may be unexpected. And occasionally things do come up, and that is a good opportunity for us just to kind of go back and forth. And one of the things I was mentioning that I really enjoy about Morgan is she's now been able to kind of figure out how to like talk me off the ledge a little bit. Because I'm a passionate leader, and every once in a while things come up, and I'm like, oh, we should go and get it done now. And she's like, well hold on a second, just wait a moment. And so, but I think having and being acutely aware and having that communication allows us to be able to, address things that are maybe misunderstood, address things that maybe a person just, again, took it and ran with it. And yeah.
I'll add to that. From my point of view, I think probably my biggest like success in crisis moments, right, where you're like, oh, I probably need to like let Zeus know, but I also need to just like do something, is I know Zeus trusts me, which is a huge thing, because it's like, okay, I'm gonna make a call right now, and I know I can explain it to him, but I know he trusts me and has my back, so it's not like I never make it out of fear of like, oh, what is he going to say? Is he going to say I did it wrong? Is he going to, like, even if I maybe would have done it different than what he would have, he'll be like, okay, yeah, I see where you came from, or we'll move forward from there. But I think that's a huge piece of it, is like, I never been in a situation where I'm like, I can't make a call because I don't know if Zeus wants me to or not want me to. I always feel like, okay, I feel equipped to do this because I know Zeus trusts me. And so
can I add to that? Because I think that's a really good point. Is I trust Morgan. I'm like, Morgan, I don't know that you would be in this position if I didn't trust you. And so to have her has been really incredible. But she mentioned something that was really interesting that I've learned over the years, and it's the idea where sometimes there is several solutions to a problem, right? Ultimately, we want the same thing, but there might be two different ways. And honestly, one of the ways that I've had to get comfortable in is she says, hey, I got it, and I'm going to handle it. It might be handled a different way that I would have maybe have done it myself, but that's okay. And that's where the trust comes in, because I know that ultimately we have the same heart, we have the same vision of what we're trying to do to direct our church and our campus specifically. But it might look a little different from time to time, and that's okay, because the trust has to be there. And Morgan does a great job with it.
Totally. Morgan, a question for you too, that, you can go down probably any vein of this that you want to, but stepping into this role, associate campus pastor, historically is a role that for probably most pastors in the AG, it's a role that's been, a male lead pastor and a male executive pastor, or a male campus pastor and a male associate campus pastor. Obviously, you've been in the AG like your whole life. You've seen that. They've been a champion of women in ministry in a lot of ways, but it still is new for a lot of people, especially young women stepping into new roles. What is something that you've observed as stepping into leadership, being a woman in that position? Okay, now I oversee men that report to me, and having that relationship with a campus pastor. There's a lot of things there's different nuances that I think sometimes people try to ignore, and it's like, well, don't talk about those things. But then there's other things that I think are really cool complements to each other. What are some things that maybe you could share with us that you've observed about that maybe you had a perception of before you got into the position, and now you see it, or maybe things that you didn't even imagine would be there that you've had to walk through? Again, you can take that down any road you want to go.
You're good. I'll go with what kind of first came to my mind as you were asking the question, is I think you have to, me as a female in this role, any other female in a role like this, you have to be so confident in your strengths and be okay with your weaknesses. Sure. So I say this a lot on our team, like, your strengths give you a role, your weaknesses give you your team. And so I have to be aware of that. Like, sometimes you can feel like, okay, do I need to be X, Y, or Z? And it's like, no, I just need to be who I am. That's why I'm where I am. Sure. Because of the strengths that, I had. That's why I'm in the role that I'm in. And so it's like, I need to be confident in those. And that's what's going to help bringing our team to be better, right? That's what I add. But also, it's okay that I have weaknesses. Everyone has weaknesses. And that's why I have the team around me that I have, because they're better at that than I am. And that's what makes me stronger, So I think it's not so much, and that's like, even with Zeus, I never tried his strengths. I'm never like, well, that's my weakness, so I need to make it my strength. It's like, no, that's why we complement each other really well. And so in certain times where it might not be my strength, I'm going to lean on Zeus for that. Like, hey, this isn't my wheelhouse. Can you coach me through it? Or can you maybe take it, or stuff like that? And I think there's, in any role, it's just that humility of that piece, but then also feeling confident when it's like, no, I think this is my strength. I can do this. Like, I've got this. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And then I would also say just relationship, like male or female, it doesn't really matter. It's when you have a team, it's about building that relationship with the person and letting them know, I'm for you. I'm in your corner. I want you to win. It's not about me and making me look good. It's, I really care about you and your success and just helping you develop and be the best person you could be. So I think those two kind of together are probably the biggest things I've learned, and just being secure in those areas for sure.
Have you seen any like congregational like I don't know if challenge is the right word, but like I think it was Westboro Baptist once protested Shakopee campus when Gabby was
I remember hearing about it.
Was youth pastor. She used to be at that campus. Now she oversees all of our youth department. But it's like sometimes from a staffing perspective, we have this culture, but then you have congregation where people are at such different places, like different belief systems. And again, that's a different podcast to get into all of that.
Yeah.
But have you seen any of that stepping into this role, going from kids pastor to associate campus pastor, now leading teams at the campus? Have you seen anything, or has it been received really well? I'm more curious on my own, but
that's a great question though. Honestly, let's address it. Yeah.
Overall, I will say no, not really. It is interesting, like as a female in a kid's position, there's no like no one thinks twice about it, right? It's like, yeah, you're a woman working with kids. Yeah. That seems like it works, which is funny because you kind of have to come at that opposite in kids ministry. Like, no, but we also need men in these roles too. And then in this role, not directly. I mean, maybe there's more than I know, but at least not to my face. I haven't heard a ton. Here and there you hear a little different bits and pieces, but again, I think just over time, it's just like, hey, well, I am in this role, and so I'm going to do the best I can. I hope we can be for each other. And I think it's just through one thing at a time that you do, through a teaching at a small group that you do, or you're in a conflict and you help navigate it, and people really get to see your heart. And it's like, okay, maybe I can get past that first initial thing that I thought originally, like, oh, this can't work, or I don't think you should be in that role. I think it's really them getting to know you and seeing like, okay, no, you are doing well in this role and what you're supposed to do. You are skilled for this. You might be the best person for it, actually. So I think it's a little bit of that. And then honestly, though, there might be people who could just never get past it. And I think I also have to be okay with that. Like, that's why there's multiple pastors. I don't have to be the one who you go to as your pastor. There's other people on staff you can go to, and I'm okay with that too. There's a lot of other people who are going to come to me and who will want me to be involved and walk with them. And so we can share that load. And it's just like, I don't need to fight a battle, quote unquote. It's okay to have that, be a situation at the end of the day.
No, that's so good. I know my dad shared that with us all the time about being like, people will claim nepotism, whenever it's a son or a daughter gets a position, and you can't control what people think about you or their perception about you, but you can control how you respond to it. And so I think that's a message, regardless whether it's you're too young for the role, you're not qualified for the role, you're not the right gender, you're not the right race, fill in the blank. It's like, I can't control what you think about me, but I can control how I respond to that. I can control how I carry myself in this role, how I carry myself in the way that I respond to you. And then, hopefully people see that and they recognize that, hey, the right person was put in that position.
Yeah, so. For sure. And I would say that has to be genuine, right? Like, it can't just be like, I say it, but I don't feel it in my heart. It's like, no, I really mean that. And I can still love you, even if we disagree,
That's great.
Yeah.
Would love if there's anything, else. I know we've kind of bounced around to a few different issues here, but things as you guys lead in this role, leading a campus, within our context, that's, being under central, there's, my dad will be sharing messages most weekends, you'll speak sometimes. But anything else you'd love to add that you're like, I want to share this with those listening? Yeah,
good question. I mean, it's to have a person like her who is an extension of me is incredible, because I think for us as leaders, one thing we have to understand is that we need people around us. We need people to help us, to compliment us, to encourage us, and sometimes, yes, even correct us. And one of the things that has been incredible working with my associate campus pastor, which is Morgan, is that she gets to do just that. And there's moments where she's an encouragement. There's moments where, again, she's like, hey, well, let me offer you this perspective. And I think that's just really good for any leader to know. It's like, hey, it's okay to even replicate yourself in some ways, like have people who are an extension of you. So if there are moments on a Sunday morning where we're running worship services and I miss something, I can trust that Morgan is likely going to pick it up, or vice versa. And so we're working in tandem. We're working with one another. When all said and done, it's under my responsibility as a campus pastor, but again, that's not to say that she doesn't have just as much ownership. Like, she cares just as much. And so it's just great to have another set of eyes that knows you and can anticipate
Sure.
what you're thinking and your needs. I mean, I try to do that when Pastor Rob's around. Like
Yeah.
when he comes through the doors, or even when he's not through the doors, I'm thinking like, hey,
Yeah.
based off the direction of our church and where the vision is going and the culture that we want to have, what are the things that I need to be anticipating? What are the things that I need to be looking out for? Because again, we are one church, multiple locations,
Yeah.
but we're still one church.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd add anything, I would say probably have like any church, right? Whether it's a lead and an executive, but this kind of role, I would say like if you're the executive or the associate, your biggest goal is to champion your lead pastor, like campus pastor, or maybe your lead of your church. And I would say that when you're doing it in front of them, but even more so when they're not in the room, because it's helping your team to see like, okay, it's almost like parents, right? Like, nope, I can't split them. They're for each other. So it's like, no matter who I'm talking to, they're always in alignment with one another. And so I think anybody in this role, that's probably the biggest way to have that be like your strongest relationship, is to just be the biggest advocate and champion of whoever you're working for, because you'll thrive more as a leader under a leadership, right? But I think it has to just be genuine who you are and how you believe in the person that you get to work with and work for.
Totally. Yeah, no, if you found out like, oh yeah, when me and Tasha, your wife, when me and Tasha are together, but then when I'm gone on a weekend or something and Tasha's like, yeah, Zeus ain't all that good.
Yeah.
It's whatever. It's like in the same way if you're associate pastor or you're executive pastor, it's like, I actually think it's kind of both what you were talking about. When no one else is around, it's like, hey, I need the real facts about like what's going on. We can be like candid and honest here. But when one of you isn't around, it's like, no, we need to be more intentional about like advocating for them. No, hey, we trust the decision. You know, because if you're there to defend yourself, it's like, hey, we can combat ideas a lot. But when that person's not there, I think that's even more for that person, especially in the executive associate role, because it can be so easy to just that vision all of a sudden. It's like, well, I don't know if I were in charge, or well, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't really trust it, and maybe next staff meeting when he's back, we should bring that up to him. So I love that you're doing that. I'm excited for the years to come at the campus to keep celebrating what God's doing there. And thanks so much for chatting for a little bit, and just excited for what God's doing. So thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.